And welcome back to the Power Accountability League. I'm your pal, Dan L. This is my channel, and I'm probably related to Kal El. Today's video is entitled Hope and Prayer. Let's get right into it. So let's say you are a father with a 10-year-old son, and your best friend is also your next door neighbor, and he also has a 10-year-old son. So you and your best friend go down to the shopping mall one weekend. It's Christmas time and Santa Claus is at the shopping mall, and your 10-year-old son gets up on the knee of Santa Claus and says, Santa, I sent you a letter to the North Pole, and I've been hoping all year that I would get this train set for Christmas. And Santa smiles and winks at the little boy and says, well, I'll have to look into that. And then your next door neighbor, who again, he has a 10-year-old son as well, his 10-year-old son gets up on the knee of Santa Claus and says, Santa, I've been praying all year that I get this remote control car, and I sent a letter to the North Pole telling you how much it costs and where you could get it and who made it, and please, please, I've been praying that you give me that remote control car for Christmas. And Santa winks at him and smiles and says, I'll have to look into that. So in that story, what's the difference between your 10-year-old boy who said he was hoping for a train set and your best friend's 10-year-old son who said he was praying for a toy, remote control? Anyway, well, there is no difference. Hoping is secular prayer. A lot of people like say, you know what, I'm not religious. Well, if you do a lot of hoping, you know what the difference is between you and people who are religious? There really is no difference. You're both superstitious. The people who are praying that there's a sentient moral authority who grants wishes, those people and you are no different if you think hoping for things actually affects the outcome of things. In 2008, there was a presidential election. Barack Obama won the presidency 2008, and there were a lot of people who said, "Oh, I love him. He talks about hope and change." Barack Obama was deified by the media, by the people who voted for him, by lots of people. They basically saw him as a god. And so when he said, I'm all about hope and change, it kind of sounded like he was saying, if you direct your hopes towards me and you help elevate me, go through an apotheosis to elevate me to godlike status, because apparently if you're president of the United States, that's the same thing as God. I don't believe that, but I think a lot of people in 2008 believe that. In fact, I still think a lot of people believe that the President of the United States is kind of like a God on earth, which is not true at all. Um, but anyway, so a lot of people said, I believe in hope and change. So they were hoping that Barack Obama would, I guess, give them a house or give them a spouse or give them a car or give them a new job. There were people who, when they were interviewed during the election cycle of 2008, they said, if he gets into office, I won't have to worry about paying my bills again. Won't have to. I don't know. I guess they won't have to worry about paying their rent or their mortgage. Won't have to worry about making their car payment or their insurance payment, I guess. But there were people who really honestly believed that if Barack Obama could be elected president, that would fix their problems. They were going to close their eyes and really, really hope he understood they needed a house. They needed a place to live. They needed someone to fall in love with. They needed someone to respect them. The point is, between January 2009 and 2016, the gap. If you were poor, hoping that Barack Obama was your salvation, well, between 2009 and 2016, the gap between rich and poor got bigger. And if you were hoping in 2008 that gap would shrink, that you would be lifted up and you'd be a little bit closer to the middle class, or maybe if you're middle class, you were hoping you'd be a little bit closer to rich people. Well, guess what? If you were middle class in 2008 or you were poor in 2008, the distance between you and rich people got farther. Now, let me ask you a question about Mark Zuckerberg, about Bob Iger, Warren Buffett, Bill Gates, about Mark Cuban, about Jeff Bezos, about Michael Bloomberg. These are all people who are super duper rich. They're all, except for, I don't know if Bob Iger is a billionaire, but all the rest of them are billionaires. And some of the people I mentioned are multi billionaires. So let me question, do you think that that they prayed for their wealth, or that maybe they spent their life hoping that they would be super duper rich. Now let's tackle this from two different angles. Let's say you do believe that the people I mentioned spent all their life either hoping or praying that they would become super duper wealthy, have more money than they could have ever dreamt of. Do you think that's why? Do you think that's why Michael Bloomberg and Mark Zuckerberg are super rich? Because they prayed or they hoped? Okay, let's do the reverse of that. Let's say that they never. Let's say Mark Zuckerberg has never prayed in his life, or Michael Bloomberg has never hoped for anything or prayed for anything. Now you're probably thinking, well, that's not possible. Everyone hopes and prays. Well, um, let's talk about a second the movie, the most recent version of Superman, Man of Steel. In one scene, um, Kal-El is telling Lois Lane, he said, "This symbol on my chest isn't an S; it stands for hope." So in the movie, in the Superman movie, Man of Steel, there's a lot of hope going on. I guess humanity is hoping they have a protector in the form of Superman because they need someone like Superman to save them. In the Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back, I think there's a scene with Yoda and Luke Skywalker. And Luke Skywalker looks defeated. He turns to Yoda defeated and he says, "Well, I tried really hard." And Yoda says, "There is no trying, there's only doing." So so I think George Lucas has a more accurate read on the universe. And if you those two, and I realize those are just movies, but they represent two divergent theories on how things get accomplished. In Superman, you hope that, I guess, the universe delivers a superhuman creature, a superhuman person to your planet to save you from bad things. And in Star Wars, George Lucas, which I think Lawrence Kasdan wrote the screenplay, but George Lucas and Kasdan are saying, you can hope all you want. You can try all you want. You have to do things. Doing is how things change. So to get back to the Michael Bloomberg, the Mark Zuckerberg, the Bill Gates, the Warren Buffett, I don't think they believe that they're super successful because they hoped or they prayed for things. And I don't think you deep down really believe that's how they got that. So, and does it make sense? If let's say Bill Gates has $50 billion or whatever, Warren Buffett has 50 billion, or Michael Bloomberg, it doesn't matter. Let's say any of the people I've been mentioning have $50 billion, and some of them do, by the way. Does it make sense that there's a God up in heaven who said, "Oh, you know what? I'm going to give $50 billion to Michael Bloomberg"? Why? Why would God single out? Well, because maybe Michael Bloomberg is better than it. Well, do you really think that? How about Mark Zuckerberg? Do you think? Have you seen the movie The Social Network? Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is better than everyone else? He is the best the human race has to offer, and because Mark Zuckerberg is the best humanity has to offer, he was rewarded from heaven with 50, 60, 70, 80 billion dollars, whatever. I don't know what the wealth is, but it's insane amount of money. Um, I don't think you believe that. I hope you don't believe that because it doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. There are. What about? Let me ask a question. Between Martin Luther King and, let's say, Howard Hughes, because they were contemporaries, not contemporaries, but they lived at the same period of time. So between Martin Luther King Jr., who was a leader of the civil rights movement, and Howard Hughes, one of them was a billionaire, and it wasn't Martin Luther King. Um, what do you think? Do you think Howard Hughes was just more deserving of $1 billion? Do you think Howard Hughes was a better example of humanity than? And by the way, I'm not attacking Howard Hughes. Howard Hughes actually did some positive thing. He actually helped win World War II. His companies and his efforts. Don't get me wrong. He wasn't a major component, but he definitely had his positive qualities. But the point is, how about if I change the scenario? How about we say Martin Luther King versus Mark Zuckerberg? Do you think Mark Zuckerberg is a better person than Martin Luther King? I don't, and I don't think you do. But yet one of them had $50 billion and the other one wasn't rich. You're like, well, he was rich in love and he was rich in wisdom. Okay, I'm okay with that. He was rich in wisdom. But which would you rather be? Rich in wisdom or have $50 billion deposited into your savings account? I'm guessing you'd say I'll take $50 billion on my savings. But maybe I could be wrong about you. But again, the point of this video is very straightforward. There's hope and there's prayer, and they're the same thing. And so if you're someone who does a lot of hoping, but you also make fun of religious people, you're no different than them. You're superstitious just like they are. You believe in something that has no scientific basis whatsoever. It's all based in irrational thinking, irrational logic. Well, there is no such thing as irrational logic, as irrationality. That's the better way to put it. Um, so I don't know. I hope this sinks. I hope you understand that things get done because people do stuff. When Adolf Hitler, you ever heard of him? When Adolf Hitler came to power, you ever heard of the brown shirts? Well, the brown shirts were people who went around and made things happen through violence, and um, that's how Adolf Hitler rose to power. The minority of people in Germany went around to intimidate the majority of people in Germany, and they just kind of said, "I guess we have to accept this psychopath as the leader of our country." Well, that's what's been happening for all of 2020. The American equivalent of brown shirts have been going around to everyone saying, "You better give us power or we'll be violent." And so, you know who has ascended to power in the United States in 2020? People who are irrational, people who, like Hitler, just want power, and if you don't give it to them, they'll use violence to attain that power. So it wasn't prayer and hope that got Joe Biden the presidency. That's not how he became president. He didn't say, "I pray to become president." Hope. He, along with lots of other people, mostly wealthy people, funded a violent movement to attain power. And it worked, just like it worked for Hitler. Are you comparing Biden to Hitler? Well, if you can compare Donald Trump to Hitler, I sure as heck can compare Joe Biden to Hitler. So, yes, I'm going to compare the Democrat Party, the whole party, to Hitler. I'm not just going to select one or two people. I've decided to call out, oh, I don't know, 100 million people and say they're all Hitler. How does that feel, by the way? Yeah, when the shoe's on the other foot, when someone can make a pretty good case that the people you worship are people who are the moral equivalent of Adolf Hitler. So, I hope you understand a little bit more about hope and prayer and how they don't work, but doing things does work. And unfortunately, if people who are really, really bad people decide to do things, they can get stuff done. And because you didn't do anything to help what was good in the world, well, you get to live in a bad world now. You get to live in a world where things are pretty scary, things are pretty ugly, things are pretty dystopian. Things kind of feel like a nightmare. And if you do find yourself living inside of a nightmare, well, you can look in the mirror because you're the one who got there. You could have stood up and you could have abandoned prayer and hope, and you could have said, "I'm not going to rely on prayer and hope. That doesn't work. I'm going to go out and do stuff." Something to think about at this Christmas season. As one of the members of the rock group Emerson, Lake and Palmer, I forget which one it was, I think they wrote a hit song called "The Christmas You Get You Deserve," or "The Christmas We Get We Deserve." The name of the song is called "Father Christmas," but there's a line in that song that says, "The Christmas we get we deserve." Well, Christmas time's coming up. We're going to find out exactly what we deserve in the next few months and years. Take care. Bye bye.